Los Angeles City Council's Committee on Homelessness and Poverty. My name is Marquise Harris Dawson. I am the chair of the committee. We're joined by committee members Jose Huizar, the founding chairperson of the committee, and Councilmember Mike Bonin. We will begin our meeting today with general public comment. We have 6 speakers who I will call up. You will have 1 minute to speak on any topic within the jurisdiction of this committee. So I'll call you up 3 at a time, and if you will join us at the podium, we are excited to hear from you. Almost excited as I am to see the inimitable Mr. Wu in the audience with us today. Hey there. Nicholas Previsic, Mark Chaddoff, Terry Rubin White.
Good afternoon. First off, I would really like to praise Councilman Huizar and his leadership on these critical issues. It has been vital, and his continued advocacy is important, as is all of yours, to resolve this humanitarian disaster that is ongoing in our streets. Expanding the Skid Row boundaries, as is possibly, I've heard, proposed by any Lanterman settlement, nor imposing the entire anarchy in the rest of this city, is not acceptable in any remote fashion. The current situation, as I said, is a disaster. It's a massive threat to public health and safety. It's an ongoing, ridiculous situation unworthy of a first world country. Skid Row must not be expanded. It must be dismantled. The city attorney's job in particular is to defend the interests of the entire city, not appease frivolous lawsuits. Mr. Four is unable or unwilling to do that duty. Perhaps he could consider becoming city attorney of Calcutta, or maybe he can get a job as an ATM. We demand that this case and all future cases be litigated all the way to the end. And also, Mr. Four, if you want lawsuits, you ain't seen nothing yet. Thank you.
Thank you for your time today. My name is Terry Rivenwright. I'm here to advocate that you go to trial in the Mitchell case. I've lived in downtown LA for 9 years. Compared to when I first moved here, I've witnessed conditions on the streets getting worse. The tents and encampments on the sidewalks create an obstacle for safe passage and create a public health hazard for people living on the streets, as well as the thriving neighborhoods that have sprung up around them. The hepatitis A outbreak was a clear message why letting people live in squalor in the streets is unacceptable for everyone. Eliminating limits on personal goods in the public right-of-way will only exacerbate the problem. Skid Row is not a walled-in area that can be contained. No one deserves to live under the current conditions of filth and crime that exist there. We must do better. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Mark Chaddoff, board chair of the Fashion District BID and owner of the California Flower Mall in the Flower District. I've been involved with the family business in downtown for over 70 years, and myself doing business in the downtown core for over 30 years. It's getting very challenging to continue to operate a business in this particular environment. We also started a bid 20 years ago to create a clean and safe environment for people to shop and work in a clean, safe environment. It's gone too far. The lawlessness on the streets is not just the homeless, but it's people who are coming down to cause crime. And they know they can. They know they can cause crime down here. It's the wild, wild west, and it's getting worse. Businesses will not survive with this constant combative, threatening energy on the streets. It's just simply not safe for anyone. And if it continues, new investments will cease and the streets will be a disaster. I urge the committee to fight the Mitchell case. It just needs to not be settled and needs to carry on.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
General public comment is closed at this point for those of you going to the kiosk. So we have Marianne Curtis, Uli Nasibova, yes, ma'am.
Members of the council, my name is Marianne Curtis. I live in Hollywood, low-income senior housing, blocks from the Hollywood Walk of Fame, where the down and out are everywhere, as they are throughout the city of LA. You blame NIMBYs in your districts for shunning shelters, but you have refused to repurpose the long vacant Parker Center in your own downtown backyard. Despite public protest, it could house 700 people. You are demolishing this building at great expense and will spend far more on an office building. Your continuing delays are criminal. People are dying in the streets every day. Your policies and lack of action amount to genocide of this city's dispossessed, disproportionately Black, and increasingly elderly. Instead of sending LAPD to Skid Row to investigate people for collecting fraudulent voter signatures, they should be investigating you for homicide of LA's unhoused people and misuse of public funds. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm actually here to comment on the Mitchell case. Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay. So I am an 11-year-old resident of downtown LA. I also own a business in downtown LA that has been in existence for 4.5 years. So I have perspectives of both a resident and a business owner in downtown Los Angeles. And over the past 11 years, I've seen actually the worsening of conditions on the street. It is very clear that the situation we're dealing with is that of mental crisis. We have an open-air mental asylum, and I wouldn't want anybody to have to be able to accumulate and have encampments on the street. That's not how you treat homelessness and a mental crisis. You treat it with counseling, with housing, with more permanent solutions rather than what we have right now. So I support Councilman Huizar.
Rob McMillan and General Dogon.
I'm Rob McMillan. I'm a new owner of a business in downtown LA, and we have had to deal with the homeless just looking away, look the other way every day, look at the activities that are taking place in front of a building that costs millions and millions of dollars, and we want to be able to be a part of the solution. We think that the city also needs to be a part of that solution. They can no longer look the other way. They've been doing it for a long time. This bill with Mitchell is just ridiculous from any logical perspective. There needs to be alternatives developed, and I believe the council has the ability, and the city has voted the money to go ahead and do this. The bond issues for homeless, the buildings, we just need to enact it and maybe get some help from the private sector if the city can't handle it. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is General Dogon. I'm a downtown/Skid Row resident for 56 years. Just want to come here just to say a couple words and encouraging the city to cancel, understand me, moving forward with a lawsuit. It's a bad idea, and the reason why it's a bad idea because the city continued to criminalize homeless issues. Since Jones in 2005, the same people that's been here, the same business people, I can name them, call off their name right now, been here jumping up and down like 3-year-olds complaining about the situation. You've been listening to them, 10 years of SCI policing. You have totally criminalized the situation. Situation has gone out of control. Some of the people that's here complaining, talking, they don't know the extent of the litigation that's been going on and the conditions that promoted all the litigation going on. The federal courts, let's keep it real, they've been consistent with upholding property rights.
Thank you.
And so what we're trying to tell you today, basically, is to forget about what they're talking about and take the deal like you always
done.
tell us.
Stop, please. Thank you. Elisa Mermelstein. Please stop disrupting the meeting.
Good afternoon. My name is Elisa Mermelstein Keller. Santee Alley, and I would like to ask the members of the City Council not to settle the Mitchell case, but to allow it to go to trial. I believe that the homeless situation is a real travesty, and I think our elected officials need to help them get off the streets. But right now, what property owners and store owners are dealing with are daily issues of encampments, trash, human waste that we are forced to clean up, and it's unfair to the owners of stores that are just trying to make a living, and we as property owners cannot provide them with a safe environment for them to operate their businesses. And we've had multiple fires and aggressive behavior from our homeless population, unfortunately, and I ask that you please help them, but not by settling this case. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That concludes general public comment. We've been joined by the Vice Chair of the Committee, Councilwoman Monica Rodriguez, and additionally, Councilmember Curran Price for a full complement of committee members. We just did 8 speakers, of which 7 were about item number 4, which is a little tricky, and then we have 59 speakers signed up for item number 4. So we're going to try to get through this agenda, give as many people as we can an opportunity to speak. So holding your applause and not disrupting the meeting will be very, very helpful today. I'll thank you in advance. If you could read item number 1 into the record.
Item 1 is California Quality Act analysis, categorical exemption, and a motion, Bonin, Huizar, Krikorian, relative to the West Los Angeles campus site of the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs to be developed for bridge housing.
Could we have one speaker on this, Claudia Brick?
Good afternoon. My name is Claudia Brick. I commend the council or this committee for trying to get the VA campus open to housing. However, it seems to me, knowing how huge that campus is, that it might be better served as a place for permanent supportive housing as opposed to bridge housing. Or some for bridge housing and more for permanent supportive housing. It's a huge campus. You could house thousands of homeless veterans on that campus, especially if the U.S. government was not renting out parts of it to private entities. So put a landing on the other side of the bridge and open that for more housing.
Thank you. Councilmember Bonin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Coordinator, come on up. Colleagues, I'll be real brief on this one. Just frame it. Literally for generations, there have been veterans in Los Angeles living under our bridges and on our streets and in our parks, all while 388 acres of land on the west side that were specifically deeded to benefit and serve veterans went unused by veterans and used by a lot of other different interests. That is now changing. A couple years ago, the Department of Veterans Affairs was sued by the ACLU and Vets Advocacy and a number of other organizations, and they agreed to transform the way they do things. As part of that, they are undergoing a master plan right now which looks to provide 1,200 units of permanent supportive housing. In the interim, after Mayor Garcetti announced the bridge housing program, the VA contacted me and Supervisor Kuehl's office and said they would be interested in having a form of bridge housing on their campus. They also were the first on the west side to provide safe parking for veterans on their campus. So they approached us, and after some painstaking work between my office, the mayor's office, Supervisor Kuehl's office, and Ms. Barclay, we have come up with a way to provide bridge housing on the VA campus for veterans. This is not something which will specifically benefit my council district. This will benefit the entire city because it will be open and eligible to veterans from around Los Angeles. And so I am not asking that we use my bridge housing money for this because we're looking at doing bridge housing specifically for CD11 in CD11. So this motion asks that we use some of the money in the unappropriated balance until we get the HEAP money, and then the HEAP money from the state can reimburse. This is a really big deal for veterans that the VA is finally starting to deliver, and I'm really glad that the City of Los Angeles and the county are helping them deliver. The county is helping fund the safe parking, and the City of Los Angeles, through the voter-approved Triple H, actually is a funder of two of the buildings that are currently being renovated to provide permanent supportive housing. I understand we have to make a technical amendment.
Yes. So a couple of things. We ask and recommend that the committee adopt the following language as the first recommendation of the committee report relative to the CEQA analysis. The language is to determine that the project to use the West Los Angeles campus site of the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs as a bridge housing facility is categorically exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act pursuant to Article 19, Sections 15301, Class 1H, 15303, Class 3C, and 15304, Class 4A, B, E, as well as the City of Los Angeles CEQA Guidelines, Article 3, Section 1, Class 1, 812, and Class 4, 136, as set forth in the Notice of Exemption attached to the council file. And we'd also request that the recommendation, or the first recommendation and the first moving clause of the motion refer to authorize the city administrative officer to negotiate and execute an agreement with the County of Los Angeles rather than specifying a memorandum of understanding, just to make the agreement type a little bit more general depending on how we end up needing to execute agreements with the VA.
So move approval as recommended with the changes from the CAO's office.
Thank you.
I'll second the motion. Hearing no objections or questions or comments, that matter will be adopted. If we could move to item number 3. Congratulations, Mr. Bonner.
Thank you.
One more step. I heard there's one in the valley.
Item number
VA property.
Item
Number 3, yes.
Item number 3 is a report from the City Administrative Officer relative to the proposed recommendations from the proposition
I'm sorry. Item number 4. I'm sorry, I misspoke.
Okay.
We go to item number 4.
Item number 4, the committee will recess to closed session.
Yes, so we have public comment on item number 4, so we're going to take those comments, and then we'll recess. And then we'll come back for 2 and 3.
Did you want me to continue the item, reading the full
Yes.
item? Okay.
Yes.
The committee will recess to closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9 D1 to confer with its legal counsel relative to the case entitled Carl Mitchell et al. Versus City of Los Angeles et al.
Thank you so much. So we have 60 speakers on the queue for this item. We have a number of people on either side of it. We're going to allot 20 minutes on each side if you indicate it on your card. So I'm going to call folks as quickly as we can, and I ask you to come up. You are not required to take the entire minute. You're certainly entitled to it, but not required to it. But we'll try to roll through as expeditiously as we can to hear from as many people as we can before we go into closed session. So I'm going to get rolling now. We'll begin. Our first speaker will be Mr. Charlie Wu. Our second one, Ruth Schwartz, and our third one, Martha Salcedo.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Charlie Wu. I've been a property owner and a business owner in the downtown area for the last 39 years. I've seen the situation getting bad to worse, and the current situation is not good for business people, not good for the resident, not good for the social service provider that help the homeless, as well as the homeless. But we always had hope that one day when the city has built up enough capacity to solve the homeless crisis, the situation will be better. And we can tolerate the fact that we use less service than other areas downtown. Our tax dollar doesn't go as far in terms of the service for our business and residents, but we accept that in the hope of something would get better. I think by settling the Mitchell case, I think would just, would be giving up in this area as hopeless. So I just urge the council not to give up and not to settle the Mitchell case. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. My name is Ruth Schwartz. I'm with Shelter Partnership. Honestly, we thought this issue had been resolved when the Jones settlement was resolved. And at that time, it was determined that all parts of the city should be affected equally, that there shouldn't be a containment policy in Skid Row, and that other areas of the community were also going to be affected by, tents and sleeping on the street and other things because we had a shelter crisis. We don't think it's fair, nor is it appropriate for the people who do business, live or work in this community in Central City East, including the thousands of people who were previously homeless and are now in a position of recovery and putting their lives together, should be treated differently than any other part of the city. Thank you.
Martha? No Martha? All right. Mark Loringer, Mike Arnold, Jessica Lau.
Good afternoon. Mark Loringer, President and CEO of Chrysalis. We've got the privilege of operating something called the Bin in the Skid Row area. It's a personal property storage facility for men and women in the community that have nowhere else to put their personal belongings. It's a basic human right, and we're proud to be able to operate that facility, and thanks to your support, I know we're trying to do this in other parts of the city. From our experience, we know that storing belongings, living on the street is not safe. It's not the right thing to do. We all know that that is the case, and it's a burden on all of our community members. We're concerned that if there's a settlement in the Mitchell case that removes the limits on personal goods storage in the public right-of-way, particularly downtown, and any differential in downtown is not acceptable, we'll be moving backwards. We ask that the city not settle this case on the terms that would negatively impact the homeless population downtown. Thanks for your consideration.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Georgia with the Midnight Mission.
Georgia, did I call your name?
I'm Mike Arnold.
So we can't do that. Mike Arnold's got to speak, or somebody else does. Sorry.
I'm also on the comment list. So
Okay, we'll get to you.
Good afternoon, council members. I'm Mike Arnold with the Midnight Mission. We believe that everyone deserves to walk through their neighborhoods without the threat of violence, assault, or drug dealing. Each day in our facility, 271 people wake up at the Midnight Mission in a safe place. They can't walk outside and make 10 steps without being offered drugs, alcohol, or sex. This is their neighborhood. And as Ruth Schwartz mentioned, there are thousands of other people who are both in the process of recovering from homelessness and living in Skid Row who do not deserve less than any other community in Los Angeles. We urge you to vote no on settling the Mitchell case. Thank you.
Thank you. After Jessica, we'll have Bert DeZuti, Javier Conlon, and Georgia Berkovich.
Good afternoon. Jessica Law with the Central City Association. The coalition that we have here today is asking this committee to reject a downtown settlement from Mitchell and go to trial. We support the constitutional protections for people, especially our most vulnerable population. This is why we believe we cannot treat people in one neighborhood differently across the city. We need to end this cycle of lawsuits that ties the city's hands. Settling cases is not working. It is inviting more lawsuits and preventing this committee from implementing policies that actually solve homelessness. We have seen this with past lawsuits and know that there will be others in the future. We are hearing incredible success stories from El Pueblo, and these lawsuits would stop that progress and threaten all of the work that this committee has done. Thank you for your continued leadership in helping resolve our region's homelessness crisis.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Bert DeZuti, Executive Vice President of Brookfield Properties, Brookfield's downtown's largest commercial property owner. Council members, like all of you, we believe in our city and the future of our downtown. We've been supportive of the many projects and initiatives that would help solve our homelessness crisis. We need to continue this work to make downtown a safe place for all people. We're also proud to be a part of this coalition and stand with our community's social service providers. We ask that the city not settle on terms that treat the people in our neighborhoods differently. We are concerned that eliminating a standard in just one neighborhood of our city is unconstitutional. We cannot deny people in downtown the same rights that we provide to other residents in the rest of the city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, council members. I'm Javier Conlon, the general manager of the JW Marriott and Ritz-Carlton. I'm also the chairman of the Tourism Marketing District for the City of Los Angeles. I'm here today to urge this committee to reject any settlement that treats downtown differently than any other neighborhoods in the city. The downtown community has been supportive of many of the desperately needed homeless services and projects that have opened since Mitchell was filed in 2016, including the El Pueblo Interim Housing Project and storage facilities for homeless individuals' personal goods. But our community also knows that homelessness is a citywide crisis and should be treated accordingly. Downtown cannot have separate standards from the rest of the city. We need to continue to realize downtown's potential as a vibrant urban center. We need to work to create housing for all income levels and make it a safe and welcoming neighborhood for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. After Ms. Berkovich, we have Jessica Duboff, Sarah Hernandez, Ellen Riotto. Thank you. You're back. Yes.
Thank you. As Mike Arnold mentioned, we believe that everyone in LA deserves to walk through their neighborhood without the threat of violence, assault, or drug dealing. Every day we have almost 300 people that wake up in a safe place only to walk out into a neighborhood that is very dangerous. This is a neighborhood where there are people who are desperately trying to recover. This is not an issue that you can heap on one community. We share this concern with our colleagues at the LA Mission, the Weingart Center, Union Rescue Mission, and with the thousands of formerly homeless men and women who live in the Skid Row area who are desperately trying to get their lives back on track. Containment has not been a successful strategy to end homelessness. Please do not double down on that idea now by settling this case. And please do not send a message that our community deserves less than anyone else. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Jessica Duboff. I'm with the LA Area Chamber of Commerce. I'm here to stand with other business organizations, civic and community leaders, and service providers here today to urge you not to settle this case. We are not in the same position we were in 2016. The Chamber has been hand in hand with the city on Measure H and Proposition HHH, advocating with you in Sacramento for additional funding and supporting your efforts on storage shelters and a bridge home program. It will never be fast enough, but we are making progress. Settling this case and treating this downtown community differently than the rest of the city would be an acceptance of an even lower quality of life for those experiencing homelessness. It would discourage the use of all the facilities and services we have invested in, creating a permanent sidewalk life for many of our most vulnerable. The Chamber thanks you for your continued commitment to addressing homelessness, but urges you to recognize all the work done to date and take this case to court.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Sarah Hernandez, and I'm a proud resident of downtown Los Angeles. I've lived in downtown for over a decade on 5th Street, which is commonly referred to as the Nickel. Many people think of the Nickel as the main thoroughfare down to Skid Row. Living on the Nickel for over a decade, homelessness has had a profound effect on my life, and I commend all of you for the efforts that you've undertaken to battle this across the city. I had the privilege last night of being at a community meeting in Lafayette Park where Councilmember Wesson did a masterful job of engaging with the community and their fears about what it would mean for a temporary housing shelter to be placed in their neighborhood. And with that said, I want to ask, Those same sorts of concerns are concerns that we've had in our neighborhood as we've sheltered the burden of shouldering this crisis for over 50 years when no one else is willing or able to. We have over 100 service providers in our community with thousands and thousands of shelter beds. We ask that you do not settle the
Thank you.
the lawsuit. Thank you.
Good afternoon, council members. Thanks for the opportunity to provide comment on this important issue. My name is Ellen Riato, and I'm the Executive Director of the South Park Business Improvement District in downtown LA. With a downtown-specific or citywide settlement, the over-concentration of homeless services and individuals will continue to grow, further decreasing the quality of life for all of downtown, including our homeless neighbors who are most vulnerable. Simply put, it is bad public policy to deny people in downtown the same rights to a clean and safe environment that are given to other residents in the city outside of downtown. We urge this committee to move the Mitchell case to trial to avoid setting a dangerous precedent for the rest of the city, county, state, and country, and to do right by all residents of LA, with or without homes. Thank you for your continued service.
Thank you. Blair Bestin, Lisa Gritzner, Teddy Slater Koch, Marina Lettie.
Good afternoon, council members. Blair Bestin. I'm also a proud resident of downtown since 2012 and worked down here since 1999. We've been remiss for decades in this crisis, and with Proposition JJJ HHH, Proposition H Lot 5, please don't stop the progress. That there's no reason to throw up our hands and stop the momentum. I'm sure you and I both know that what's sanctified in Skid Row will be allowed citywide, because what's labeled a right by a court order is not exclusive to one neighborhood. So this settlement is not a settlement of any kind. It's a gift to Ms. Sobel's law firm and the promise of future lawsuits in other parts of town, which is actually worse than when we were doing nothing. It would actually prevent the good work that we've begun. I urge you to fight for the people on the streets that don't need more stuff. This isn't about stuff, it's about people. It's about the treatment of mental health. It's about the treatment of addiction. And we will be using our power to focus on encouraging other neighborhoods to take shelters in, because that's the right thing to do. And I believe in everyone in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, council members. Lisa Gritzner. I'm here on behalf of Hanjin International and the Wilshire Grand Center. I want to echo the words that you've heard here today, and I don't need to take a lot of time, but we've invested $1.3 billion into downtown Los Angeles because we believe in the future of Los Angeles. We've supported the efforts of the City Council to raise money to provide services and homes for the homeless population, people experiencing homelessness in our city. And we want to see progress. We want to show success. We want to show the voters and the people of Los Angeles that when we invest and we support and we care about the people in our community, that there's progress, that we don't stay static and we don't move backwards. So I urge you to reject the Mitchell settlement and please help us move our city forward.
Good afternoon. I'm Marina Lettie with the Fashion District Business Improvement District. We're urging you to not settle the Mitchell case. We have seen an increase in accumulation of possessions throughout our sidewalks. We have about 500 people living on our sidewalks, accumulating possessions that are causing fire hazards, as well as impeding the access to businesses and handicapped ramps. We really cannot afford to have any additional problems on the sidewalks, and we believe that Mitchell will do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Did we hear from Teddy? Tedye? Okay, so we've already heard from Mr. DeZuti, so we can take him off the board. Nick Griffin, Suzanne Hawley, Carlcade.
Good afternoon. My name is Suzanne Hawley, and I'm the President and CEO of the Downtown Center Business Improvement District. I'm here today to ask you to not settle this case. We have been settling for these conditions for far too long. While settlement may bring an end to this case, it will be the beginning of much worse issues. Confining this to Skid Row does not ensure containment, but provides a foot into the door for the rest of Los Angeles. Allowing an entrenchment of property on the sidewalks is not good for the city, but it's even worse for those poor people on the streets because it gives a sense of permanence to their condition and discourages a pathway to housing. The city and county have done so much since this suit was brought to start to seriously address these issues. Expanding the current conditions will not only hamper these efforts, but may cripple real progress. I'm asking you to stand up and fight the good fight. A fight benefits all of the city's residents, both housed and unhoused. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Nick Griffin, Executive Director for the Downtown Center BID. Allowing people to live on the street is not safe or healthy for anyone. Settling Mitchell would condone and continue this inhumane situation. The city, with the support of the voters and coalitions of charities, are making great progress on homelessness, and settling Mitchell would undermine that progress. We must not settle for this status quo, and therefore we must not settle Mitchell. Thank you.
Thank you. After Carl, there will be Philip, Lori Sale, Philip Lynn, Lori Sale, Ariana Nustorf. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is Carlcade. I sit on the board both of the Downtown BID as well as the Central City Association. I'm here with a broad coalition because we are really excited about the changes we see starting to bear fruit, and because we have huge hopes for the people who are the most vulnerable in our society. I can't think that the best thing we can do for people who are the most vulnerable in our society is to allow them to live and die on the streets as we have seen today. And I really look forward to holding ourselves responsible for doing much, much more. Please don't settle the Mitchell case.
Thank you. Come on up.
Hi, I'm Lori Sale. And I'm a property owner in downtown Los Angeles. I just want to say that I hope this lawsuit is not settled. Our tenants are harassed and have to put up with needles and human waste in the street. We have one gentleman who walks by who's mentally challenged, and he plays with his own poop every day in front of one of our tenants' stores. If this lawsuit is settled, and there will be no limit to the amount of personal property that a person can have on the sidewalk, we might as well quit trying to rent our spaces to businesses and close up shop. It's already bad enough coming to work and finding tents, needles, and human waste in front of our roll-down gates because people have been sleeping there. People don't want to work or live where they don't feel safe. Millions of dollars will have been spent in vain, and hundreds of workers will have to find other jobs. We will once again become the blighted area of Los Angeles. Not good for anyone's legacy.
Thank you. After Ariana, we have Sarah Wiltfong, Pat Barrett, Bruce Curry.
Good afternoon. My name is Ariana Nustorf. I've been a resident of downtown LA for over 7 years. I serve on several community boards, and I'm very active in organizing my community because I'm passionate about my neighborhood, and I care about the people here, whether they are sheltered or unsheltered. I'm here on my own accord to remind you that 70% of voters in Los Angeles approve Measure HHH, and you're executing HHH through a bridge home. If you believe in a bridge home, how can you settle this case? A settlement is not the solution. It is an expansion of the status quo. If you want voters to support you and to support a bridge home, you can't show them that you can be taken hostage by lawsuits to dictate your approach to addressing our homelessness crisis. If you want voters to believe in a bridge home, you can't settle this case because it sends a completely contradictory message. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Sarah Wiltfong, and I'm here on behalf of BizFed, a grassroots alliance of more than 170 business organizations that represent over 390,000 employers with 3.5 million employees in LA County. And we are celebrating our 10th anniversary with a mission to lift 1 million people out of poverty in the next decade. One of the many opportunities to lift and prevent poverty in LA County are providing solutions to solve our homeless crisis through job creation and supporting services and housing that will break the vicious cycle of racism back into the streets. We are here to urge the city to go to trial and not settle because we have concerns of what a potential settlement would mean under the current jurisdiction. We believe the Mitchell versus City of Los Angeles would reverse the goals of Prop HHH and Measure H by encouraging concentration of homeless people onto sidewalks with more belongings that law enforcement and the City of Los Angeles would be prohibited from removing. We've also submitted a letter to each of the city council members with more of our views on this matter.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Pat Barrett. I'm a resident in downtown LA. I live in South Park. And please do not pass Mitchell versus the City of Los Angeles for the following reasons. Number one is people from Texas who have criminal records, the cops are asking them, do they want to go to jail or do they want to come to Los Angeles? They get a one-way bus ticket here. We have the cheapest drugs in the United States. We are a central point for drugs, and if you look on the maps, like on the History Channel and stuff, we are major distribution for that. Every single tent is doing drugs, guns, prostitution. And what about the 250 kids in Skid Row that have to walk across to go to Patos Los Niños? The chances for kids getting off Skid Row, what the cops are telling me, is 0%. Can we at least give them a chance? I support what Jose Huizar has done. Do not go with the destruction of LA. That's what Mitchell, if you vote on it, that's what is going to happen. Thank you very much.
After Mr. Curry, we have Josh Gray Emmer, Linda Becker, and Claudia Oliveira. Yes, sir.
So as another representative of the hospitality community of downtown, just added 180 jobs to the city. We are also heavily impacted by this situation. Just a couple of months ago, we had a fire in our, just a block away from the facility, which basically cleared our lobby, called out our guests into the streets. This issue impacts all of us in the downtown core. As a downtown resident, I also see it in my direct neighborhood. I strongly urge you not to settle Mitchell, to go to trial, and so we can move forward with this process and we see the resurrection of downtown that's been continuing on these 10 years.
Thank you.
Okay.
Josh Grahammer, 17-year resident of downtown Los Angeles. I want to thank Mr. Huizar's office for his leadership on homeless issues in downtown Los Angeles. You must not settle this case. Telling people that it's okay, that the city believes it's fine for them to live on the street in just downtown Los Angeles is unconscionable. In addition to that, if you think that it's going to stay here in downtown Los Angeles, I mean, we all know that you're going to be sued. It will spread throughout the rest of Los Angeles. Ghettoization of one particular district is never going to hold. And you just cannot allow this to happen. It's not good for our city. It's not good for the people who are living on the streets. And it's a step backwards. We need to continue on the forward movement that we've generated with HHH. We need to find these people homes. They deserve to have homes. We cannot just tell them that, fine, we're going to let you live on the street. Thank you so much.
Hello, my name is Linda Becker, and I'm a third-generation property owner in downtown LA. I come downtown every day to work, and things have gotten a lot worse. The progress and developments in downtown that so many of us have worked so hard to achieve is in great jeopardy if you agree to settle the Mitchell case. Our streets have become increasingly more dangerous and lawless. The number of fires on our streets has increased significantly. The amount of trash left on our streets as a direct result of the increase of homeless is out of control. Settling the Mitchell case will not help our homeless population. They deserve better. You are trying so hard to implement the city's A Bridge Home strategy. By settling this case and allowing expanded borders of Skid Row and removing the 60-gallon limit of personal belongings, you are essentially working against yourselves and making your goal harder to achieve. The solutions are complicated, I know, but one thing I do know is that settling the Mitchell case is not the solution. It will make things worse. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Claudia Oliveira. I'm downtown Los Angeles Neighborhood Council speaking in my private capacity. I'm also the assistant to the Rabbi Greenwald of downtown. And I'm here to say that Carol Sobel to me is nothing but an ambulance chaser. She is making money from making poster boys of homeless people and to advance the agenda of those who are paying her. I'm going to say, if you wonder why the bulky items, they're fighting so hard for it, it is meant for visibility. So you cannot look inside of the tents. Whirlpools, refrigerators, or 20 bikes, it doesn't matter. It's so that you can see what's really going in there. And I know this because I spent a lot of time in Skid Row. And this is what's going on. Thank you.
Timothy Anderson, Ellen Endo, Mark Chaddoff. Mark, you have your name appears here 3 more times, so this will be your one time to speak. And Ryanafari. Come on up.
Hi, my name is Ellen Endo. I'm co-chair of the Little Tokyo Bid, and I want to speak against settling the Mitchell versus the city. There is a lot of hope in our community that the efforts of Councilman Huizar and the council itself will bear fruit, and that we will be able to address at some point the homeless situation, and we really want to encourage that. And the main thing is, when you think about homelessness, it's like if you want to get people off the street, the solution is not to give them more street. So let's find places for people to live. Thank you.
Thank you.
How's it going? Ryanafari. I'm owner of the Hillcrest Company development firm here. I own property. I'm also on the Historic Core BID board and on the neighborhood council. I'm speaking today as a private citizen. I just wanted to urge you guys to not settle the case against Mitchell. We collectively have invested billions and billions of dollars, hundreds of thousands of hours of time, resources, infrastructure costs from the city, federal dollars into making downtown the place that it is since in the last 20, 30 years. And I think it's not safe for homeless people. It's not safe for the residents. I think it's a slap in the face of all the people who have spent the time to make this neighborhood what it is today. And obviously, I think long term, it's not the solution. I think to see any public right of way to some specific residents and not others, if I can't walk through the streets of my neighborhood because somebody else, wants to basically make it private for themselves, I think that's kind of a ridiculous thing to expect. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
George Campos, Hal Bastin, Miguel Nelson.
Hello, my name is George Campos. I'm board member of the Historical Cultural Neighborhood Council representing Little Tokyo. I'm also the board member of the Little Tokyo Villa HOA. We are concerned about the health and safety issues. Today, for the last few years, we have been collecting more and more needles around the property. We've been having to clean more and more human waste around the property. We've had to implement more securities around the property because of break-ins from the homeless. Not too long ago, one of our residents was thrown off the platform from the metro station in the Little Tokyo Arts District by a homeless person and died. We are very, very much concerned about the safety and health issues for our children, the elderly, that affects over I believe it's 14,000 residents in Little Tokyo. I ask that you please do not settle the case. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Hal Bastin. I live, work
in downtown LA. I've been one of the leaders for the last 25 years has been building this Renaissance. I'm here to tell you that the Renaissance is not invincible. The crisis that we have on the streets is causing many residents to move out. I have come this close to leaving because I am so fatigued, but I haven't because I'm going to stay and fight. Please do not settle, fight, and get some private counsel to advise the city attorney. I asked the city attorney, why are we not seeking it? He says, we have a lot of fine attorneys. That may be true, but the attorneys aren't winning for us right now.
Thank you.
One last thing. In the police, in 2014, Central Division had 340 sworn officers. Today it's 314. We've increased the population by 40,000 people since then. We should be having more people, more public safety. The job of the sovereign is to control the public realm. Please do it.
After Miguel, we have Ryan Aubry, Jim White, and Jason Lee.
Hi, I'm Miguel Nelson. I'm a property owner, a business owner, and a neighborhood activist in Central City East. Please don't settle this case. Take it to trial. It should be obvious to all of us by now that facilitating any kind of streets camping or sidewalk camping isn't helping anybody. The streets aren't designed to be lived on. They're far too dangerous, especially in our most urban areas like Central City East. We need to provide off-street solutions. I'm a firm believer in safe campgrounds that could be city-run. I really hope we can do that as a type of bridge home, a temporary emergency shelter off streets are the only way to help those that have no other choice but to live in the street. Thank you.
Thank you. When I call you, if you could be lined up so we pick up a little bit of time. So after Jason Lee, we have Rasmus Lee, Max Gallardo, and Shane Warbuck.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Ryan Aubry, and I'm with Greenland USA, the developer of the Metropolis project in downtown Los Angeles. Greenland would like to commend the council and the city, and specifically the council member, on some of the great successes that have been achieved recently with homelessness, specifically securing the funds in HHH, opening the Lot 5 transitional home opportunity there. However, Greenland has serious concerns about what is being proposed in the Mitchell settlement, specifically the effective elimination of a limit on personal goods. With the rise in tents and personal goods on the sidewalk is a direct result of the Mitchell case. We encourage the city not to settle and instead go to trial. We're very concerned that any settlement would continue the overconcentration of homelessness individuals, services, and housing in downtown, and ultimately further decrease the quality of life for all individuals who live and work here. Thank you very much.
My name is Rasmus Lee. I strongly urge the city not to settle this case. I own a business and live in South Park since 2004. I was myself homeless for a brief period after I left New York and shortly after I got to LA. And regardless of which way you look at this, normalizing people living on the streets is not acceptable. Regardless of which way you look at it, it's not a place to live. There should be programs. My business volunteers at the Midnight Mission, and we find that that's a very effective way to deal with this, what they're doing basically, which is to provide programs for them to learn how to work, discipline, and be a normal contributing citizen. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Shane Warbuck. I'm the president of an HOA down in South Park. Found out about this case just a few weeks ago, actually on Facebook, coincidentally. Reached out to the bid and started speaking to people in my building and the people that I know in downtown, and they were horrified that we would consider even settling this case. I think all of them were very convinced that we should fight. I'm very proud of living here. Lived here for about a year. Had to convince my wife to live here. She loves it. Love walking around the city. We obviously have a homeless problem, but this isn't the right way to solve it. I think it's almost insanity concerning the fact that we have the Olympics coming here in 10 years, that we would consider going backwards to where we were, and I think we should continue to move forward, and you should fight.
Thank you so much. So we're at time now. I want to just ask, before we go into closed session, is there anybody who signed up to speak, whose name I will find on here, who is in favor of settling that hasn't spoken? All right. So we've heard thoroughly from people who are against settling and going to trial. Okay, so with that, we'll close our public comment on this. We apologize to those we weren't able to get to, but we have got to make sure we keep quorum in this committee. And so now, if you can prepare us for closed session. Yes, sir, Mr. Huizar.
Before you, I want to thank everybody who came out today to speak. And, you know, in all the issues that I've been dealing with in City Council representing downtown, I have never seen the community get together and agree on one thing. And all of you here, it's probably the largest presence I've seen on any one issue that have come to testify before the council. So I want to thank you for being here. But I think you're here because we are at a tipping point where we're asking ourselves, do we set a new course, a new direction on how the city has been handling the issue of homelessness in downtown? And I think this is it. We don't want to continue going with the status quo. We don't want to continue to perpetuate the existence of the conditions in Skid Row. And we want to go forward on having the city set proactive policies on how we handle homelessness in downtown LA. And so I agree with the constituents who came today. We should not perpetuate the existence of Skid Row and what exists there. We should not, even less, have a reason to expand the boundaries of Skid Row. And we should also, at the end of the day, move towards a new way of handling homelessness, and this is not it. And if we are told that the chances of winning don't look good as we appeal and continue to look forward, I'm willing to take that chance and I'm willing to take that risk. Because the stakes are so high, and we should find a new course and go in a new direction, and settling this case is not the way to go. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Well said, Mr. Huizar. So, Sergeants, if you will prepare us for closed session.
homelessness impact. So I want to introduce you to SHARE. We want to help you move forward on your commitment to house at least 100 people in every city council district, and part of Councilmember Bonin's motion to the committee was to look at scaling this model. So we wanted to, so some of the things that you have with you, you have a photo packet that includes samples of houses in every council district represented on the committee. You have a white paper which was put together by independent researchers for SAMHSA, which is the Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Administration. SAMHSA tracks national best practices for dealing with mental health, substance use, and homelessness issues. SHARE's a nationally recognized leader in putting evidence-based programs into practice. So, and then you have a budget of what that proposal would look like. The budget includes the issues of developing or getting housing. SHARE uses single-family homes throughout the city, and then it also looks at leveraging supportive services through Measure H. So 100 people per district is a great goal. SHARE is a solution that has immediate impact and effectively moves people into housing and efficiently connects them to services. So Councilmember Huizar talked about models that really changed what we do with housing and homelessness, and SHARE is one of those models. So what we look at when we look at 57,000 people living on the streets of Los Angeles is trauma. 70% are disabled, 85% are individuals, and what we see is whatever the issue is, the thing that works for people is social support and emotional support. That's what SHARE does. SHARE was recognized by the Division 27 of the American Psychological Association. The person that developed the Housing First model, Sam Sambaris, received the award the year before SHARE received the award for putting research into practice. The way that we do that is to connect people to self-help support groups. So we connect people to other people to recover from trauma. We house people. To give you an idea of the number of people we house, we have approximately 500 people in housing today. We house about 2 people a day, and what we do with that is we get people connected to their goals and to a supportive community that helps them achieve their goals. So the thing that is essential in that, I mentioned Sam Sambaris. He developed the Housing Now model, which our coordinated entry system is supposed to be using. We call it a Housing Now model. The essential element is people with lived experience connecting with other people coming out of homelessness. That is, and connecting people to self-help support groups is critical because it's community-based support that's available all the time. So approximately 70% of people in our housing program are connected with other people who have the same goals, because when somebody wants to deal with their diabetes or cancer or heart disease, there are people in the community that are already dealing with that, and they're available 24/7 rather than a case manager who is not available after they're done with their shift. So when we look at trauma, we look at self-help support groups. They reduce the number of days spent in the hospital. They reduce the number of drug and alcohol incidents that people have in criminal behavior, and they immediately connect people to others, increasing empowerment, providing opportunities to mentor people. The thing that makes the difference when somebody is moving from one situation to another, whether it's incarceration to reentry, homelessness to housing, is unconditional love and support. So our staff develop a family in a single family house where residents run the house themselves and are able to provide support to each other. So one of the things that I want to focus on with collaborative housing is the fact that it's available right now. Today in Los Angeles, there are 120,000 single-family homes for rent. There are 57,000 homeless individuals, right? We could house those 57,000 homeless individuals with 7,000 houses. That's available. We can do this. And 20% of people that move into our housing program move in the same day they call for housing. 40% of people that move into our housing program move in within 2 days. We're connected with the coordinated entry system. We received 2,066 referrals last fiscal year, and we placed 461 people. 25% of the people that called us for housing got into housing. And those referrals came from 191 different agencies. When we look at the type of housing this is, what we replicate is normal living. Everybody that goes to, sends a child off to college, that child is going to live in the dorm where they share a room with somebody else. That's essential because it connects them to social support. When we have our houses, people share a bedroom with one other person, and what that does is it helps them have relationships with everybody in the house, because 40% of whether people are okay or not okay is directly related to the amount of social support they have. And by getting people in an environment where they share, they develop those relationships to then be able to thrive. So I mentioned some of the statistics about how many people we house. When Councilmember Bonin started his program, we got a contract from LASA in February. It was through June. LASA is expediting their contracting, so that's great. Thank you, LASA, who's in the room. In those 4 months, we housed 35 people. We created 107 new units of housing. So that is very quick. We also we know that 26% of people that move into our housing within a year get a job and move into market rate housing that they maintain themselves. So what we're doing is not warehousing people. We're getting people into a relationship and into a social support structure where they get to live the life that they want to live, whatever that is. And our houses don't have conditions. So we have people that have been in the same house for 10 years. We have people that 30 to 60 days within moving in, they move out because as soon as they move into a single family home in a nice neighborhood, they call their family and they say, this is where I am. So I talk about the research as well. That's in the white paper that you have. So what we want to do in terms of scaling across the city, we can bring in 100 units of housing for every city council district, and we can do this effectively because of the flexibility of funding that you have. As we bring that housing in, we're going to be able to open 160 more homes, employ 70 peer bridgers. Those are people with lived experience, and I hope they're here. Okay. I wanted to wrap up because we have some residents here and we have staff that do this support that I wanted to hear from. So as a city council, as a district, when you create units of housing, you can then go to the county and say, I've created these units of housing. Now we have a need for supportive services. SHARE already has contracts with the Department of Mental Health Services for supportive services, so it's easy to expand those contracts when the units of housing are there. I will also say we work with the coordinated entry system, and the average number of, there's this vulnerability index score that people have moving into homelessness that measures the acuity that people have, and it looks at health issues, mental health, substance abuse, trauma they have, criminal activity, how likely they are to suffer on the street. The threshold for high acuity is 8. The average across our programs countywide of the 460 people we have in housing is 7.9. We have specific contracts that deal with high acuity people where our average is over 10. So we work with everybody, and we're happy to help you achieve your goal of moving in this direction. And I'd like to bring up Rachel Estrada and Cara. Cara is a resident who came with us to talk about her experience, and Rachel is a peer bridger.
Thanks for coming down.
Yeah. Hello, my name is Kara English, and it's an honor to be here. My story is that I pretty much grew up on the streets of LA. I've been homeless since I was 16 years old for over a decade of my life. I really lost count, I don't know. I lived on Sunset Boulevard, Hollywood Boulevard. I ended up in the mental health care system. I really couldn't get out of the system, and I could never find anywhere to live. And I found the SHARE program through a transitional housing living situation that I was in, but it was only temporary, like everything is when you're homeless. And SHARE housing immediately gets you into a real home. I'm 37 years old, and it's the first time I've ever lived in a house. And I'm in college. It's my second year of college. I attend Cerritos College. I won a scholarship for school because my GPA was so high. And I recently got a job. I'm making $13.75 an hour, and it's a big deal to me. And I'm just living proof that SHARE works. And I have a peer bridger that supports me 110%. The women in the house are incredible support to me every day. They have my back. I can talk to them about anything. It's a huge, when you come home, it feels like a home. And everyone there has been through their own stuff in life, and we're just there to support each other. We have house meetings where we kind of get everything out on the table and figure out what's going on in the house and who needs help with what, and it's just support all the way around 24/7. And I couldn't ask for, I've never been more comfortable in my life than I am today. I'm mentally healthy, I'm physically healthy, and I'm just living proof that SHARE works, and I'm just happy to promote it.
Thank you. For the record, could you just give us your name again?
Kara English.
Great, thank you.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Rachel Estrada, and I'm a little nervous because this is like a big thing for me, but I want to share with you guys that before I got employed at SHARE, I also was homeless and I was on Skid Row. I had fallen through the cracks through many agencies, and I didn't get the support I needed. I felt like I was desperate, I didn't know, and someone gave me information about SHARE. So I went there just as a person that's sitting on the table and watching everything. I wanted to see that if it was true. I started the peer class. There was a peer class that came about, so I registered, and of course I had the support that I needed. I didn't know how to do anything pretty much. I had got lost in translation. When you're homeless, you're desperate, you lose the sense of a lot of things. You lose the sense of being human because you're not treated with the human face. So what I can say is I did the peer support class, I volunteered, I did a lot. I had the support of a great team at SHARE. And so when I go out to visit, I do disclose and I tell all my residents that I live the same experience that they have. It's a real program. The reason it works is because they treat you equally. They don't treat you as if you're nothing. And when you go into different places, they treat you like you're nothing. So when you have the support and you have the people that you can come to and you have the resources and you're identified with certain things about yourself. One of the main things we talk about is support groups. Why? Because support groups is a place you can go and you can get help and you can identify with certain things that you're battling. But if you go to different agencies, not to say that they don't, but I know I've fallen through the cracks over 15 years. I never got the support like I did with SHARE. And so I advocate strongly that you guys give us an opportunity so we can continue to house the people that really need housing and we continue to support the people that need support. And it's just something different, but it works. I'm a living testimony of that. I'm a peer bridger now. I go out to visit my residents and I connect with every resident that I have through my lived experience. And I just want to say thank you for giving me the time to talk, and I appreciate it.
Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just to clarify a couple things, the training that Rachel referred to SHARE has a contract with the state of California through the Office of Statewide Health Planning and Development to train people with lived experience that work in the public mental health system. So we're ready. We have what we call a Peer Bridger Academy, where we're training peer bridgers to be available throughout the system. And when Rachel and Cara were talking about self-help support groups, these are groups that exist in the community and are completely free. A lot of people know 12-step groups. SHARE maintains a database of 12,000 groups that work for over 750 different life issues. So whatever somebody's going through, there's a community of individuals that are also going through that issue. And the research shows when people are connected to other people that are going through what they're going through, their outcomes are better across the board. They make more money, they're happier, they live longer, they're hospitalized less often. So the goal of our training is to get our peer bridgers to be able to use their lived experience to connect people to the support that's available in the community and is not a paid relationship. Because we have to get people out of the system and into the social support that's available all the time. That's what self-help support groups do. I also have Heidi Roberts, who is one of our homeowners. Typically our homes, we look on Craigslist for people who are trying to rent their homes. Heidi has been an advocate for homelessness and housing issues since she's been in Los Angeles. And she got involved and said, you know what, I'm going to sell some of my properties and I'm going to buy a property and use it for shared collaborative housing. So I wanted her to talk about that experience.
I think I need to reintroduce myself because, as Mike knows, I'm actually the thorn in his side. So I am the official thorn.
One of many.
One of many. But I live in Venice, and I've lived there for 18 years. And frankly, I just got sick of seeing people rotting on the streets. And I started getting involved, and I started trying to understand how to end homelessness, hence the thorn. And I discovered SHARE when I was volunteering at PATH many years ago, and to me it was just sort of a no-brainer. It's like the way you end homelessness is you house people, and it seemed to me that this was, you know, when I was working the front desk at PATH, I would try and figure out how to get people housed every night to learn this process. And the only way I could get them into housing was by hooking them up with PATH, or with SHARE, excuse me. So then I started working more with them, and I just sort of got the idea that, you know what, I want to be an example because I got sick of hearing myself talk about it. And I got sick to death of hearing myself. I'm sure you did too, Mike. You probably got really sick of hearing me write and talk. And I just decided I needed to do it so that I could show other people it could be done. And for us, my husband and I, we sold some apartment buildings, small apartment buildings, and we've been buying new apartment buildings. I think one in your district, Councilmember Price, it's on Wall Street. Is that correct? It's your district? It's called Weller House, and it's brand new construction, and we furnished it, and we, you know, made it beautiful and homey and lovely, and moved 28 people into this small community. And while I don't have the exact statistic, I would tell you it's about 75% of my residents have gone on to do great things. You know, for some people it means getting into mental health full time. For some people it means getting a job. For some people it means reconnecting with family. And with the help of Rachel, our peer bridger, we're transforming actively every single day people's lives. And it's only been 6 months, guys, and I'm already seeing it with 28 people. We are opening another building right now in Hyde Park, and it's a duplex, and it's got 20 people. We had somebody move in last night, a bunch more people moving in next week. Got another building just south of downtown Los Angeles opening again next month, and we're off and running, and I just wanted to tell you it's working. We do well as private homeowners. You know, we do fine financially, just as well as if we were renting it to families. You do well because we're helping you get 68 people off the streets and into a state where they're changing their lives. And our tenants do well because, you know, they finally have a home, and, you know, they've got a family there. And by the way, it's not perfect. You know, they're fighting like family members do. I mean, it's louder than my house is there for sure, but they're finally finding some stability. And the thing is, it's not costing the city anything for the most part, and it's happening today. We have a plan. I'm just going to talk for one more second because my husband and I have put together some numbers, and we actually submitted to that Housing Innovations Challenge because we've worked with some developers, Ocean Development and Citywide Investments, and they've agreed to master lease buildings to us. So we can master lease as many as, say, 60, 80 buildings a year. So we can be opening up these projects that are housing 20, 40, 60 people a month. And we can start that next month. We're ready to go. All it takes is just budget to buy some beds and TVs, and we can help you solve this massive problem. And then poor Mike can get me off of his back, which would probably be worth just about anything to him. So thank you for making this happen.
Thank you all so much. I'm going to ask committee members if they have any questions or comments, beginning with Mr. Price.
Thank you. Thank you. First of all, Mr. Bond, thank you for bringing this to our attention and for creating a atmosphere where thorns take action. So thanks for your help on that. So are these facilities co-ed? Are they all male or female? How do they shake out that way?
They shake out differently over time. Usually homeowners will want to have a house for men or for women. For people that are more fluid on the gender continuum, they decide how they define themselves and where they want to live. We do have houses that are co-ed. Some houses have couples living together. And some houses focus on specific things. We have houses specifically for veterans. We have some houses that are, we've had Farsi-speaking houses before. So wherever a homeowner wants to focus, we honor that and we can find the population. We have a homeowner in actually Council District 7 that wants to do an LGBTQ house. So, and we've had more of those houses, and we see a need for more of those houses because even when we have houses that are LGBTQ friendly, the feedback we get is that people want that community where they feel part of, because even in a friendly house, they may feel excluded themselves in a way they don't when it's an explicit LGBTQ house. So we match the residents on a first-come, first-served basis based on the kind of house that they want to be in. And literally, we have, because we have 50 houses operating through the county right now, and we have, you know, for every 100 beds that we open, we house 160 people. So the way it works now is Monday through Friday, people from all over LA County are calling 877-SHARE-49 between 1 p.m. and 3 p.m. and whoever answers the phone, we have our peer bridgers come in and answer the phone, and we have a property management tracking system called Buildium that just tracks our vacancies. So we open our vacancies and we connect people with homeowners on that conversation. We do a conference call so they can move into housing that day.
And how do we work to? I mean, obviously this is a universal problem, you know, but it's a problem in a neighborhood by neighborhood basis. How do we make sure, or how do we not make sure? How do we? Is there any way to guarantee that people in an area who are homeless in an area can find housing in that area, as opposed to some homeless person on the west side finding all of a sudden there's a nice house available here in South LA? How do we kind of handle those sensitivities?
The sensitivities that we deal with are, we have a house in Venice. It's there. The house in Venice is full, as far as I know. We've had people change. So we're able to open houses wherever we have the resources to go look for houses. And that's what we're really looking for, is the resources to be able to go look for houses, because that's the thing that we haven't had before. So the other thing that's important is there are really nice neighborhoods in all parts of Los Angeles. And when people are connected to that house, it really transforms their life and their understanding. So we are able to look at houses. The place that we don't have any houses right now, when you look at the county, is the Antelope Valley, because we just don't have the bandwidth to get out there and look at that.
And do peers live on site, or they just drop in?
No.
Periodically, they drop in according to some schedule. They just drop in when they're called. What's their role?
So I'm gonna bring Rachel back to talk about how she does this. The idea, when you have, so We started this program when we had no funding for it. We had funding for our referral service for self-help support groups, and we said, you know what? We had a resident come to us and say, I'm 59 years old, and I've been homeless for 20 years. I'm an incest survivor and a rape survivor. There's all this housing for people over here, but I can't get housing. So we brought together, we did our Apollo project, and we said, how do we get, at that time there were 90,000 homeless people identified in our homeless count. That was 2004, and a third of them were people with disabilities that had SSI income, but they couldn't get housing because they couldn't pass a background check. They had bad credit, they had an eviction history, they might have wanted to live with pets. So we brought together our stakeholders committee and said, how do we house people who have income so that they can use their income for housing? We came up with shared collaborative housing. The peer bridger does not live in the house, because when you have one person in the house that is not the same as everybody else, it creates power struggles and you get more conflict, right? So the residents create the rules themselves. The peer bridger visits whenever there are issues. And the real trick is what we're doing with this trauma-informed approach is to support people through conflict resolution. Because once people are able to sustain relationships through conflict, that's a skill that then transfers into their employment, into family. They can have relationships with family members that they were previously not connected with. They can work for a person they think isn't as smart as them. They can work with a coworker that they don't like. That's how that works. The houses have meetings every week, and the peer bridger tries to schedule their meetings around those visits. So, Rachel, how does that work?
Once again, hi. So what I do is I visit weekly, and then I set up another meeting with the residents on their scheduled day or the day that they choose, and then I meet with them. And usually what I do is I go and I support the residents when they're having conflict or they're having some form of problem, or they feel as if another resident may say, I think that this person may need support. I give them the resources and the referrals, and I connect them. That's a really important thing that we do. So what I do is when I go in there, I pretty much allow for the residents, or they, not me allow, but they talk amongst themselves, and I support them as best as I can. And with the training that we get, we use the tools of the trade. And so that's probably something that's another subject, but there's things how we go in there, how we identify what we use, how we minimize our authority, and what we do. We open up and we discuss, and we open up to a lot of talk about different things in order for it to change up a little bit. When that changes, they start to feel that they're more supportive, because they're feeling, number one, they need to feel heard. We're not there to change how they feel. That's one of the things that we don't do. We don't change how they feel. We just identify what they're feeling, and we go from there, and then we kind of give them the sense of how we're going to connect them. So weekly is what I do. I go visit the houses weekly, and then we connect them again. So that's how we go.
I will also say that one of the benefits of having people together as a community in a single-family house is that as soon as there's an issue, people are calling. When there's an issue with somebody else, even if it's not really an issue, if they just perceive that it's an issue, they're calling their peer bridger, or they're calling the homeowner, and the homeowner's calling us. So when people start to decompensate or get into trouble, we know before it becomes a real problem and somebody might need to be hospitalized. We're able to deal with it as soon as it starts to emerge.
Then one last question. I can see a situation if it's a two-bedroom house or four-bedroom house, and of course the peer comes in. I guess maybe 10 people. You get an ocean property, and all of a sudden you got 10 bedrooms. One site, 10 bedrooms, 20 people, and folks are kind of on their own unless there's an issue. I'm just trying to get my hands around how. I appreciate the shared concept and philosophy, but it sounds like someone gets in, and as long as he or she doesn't cause any problems, they can live there forever, at that rate. Last question. And then, so do you receive the SSI checks, or where does the money go? How does that flow occur?
So there are two sides to that. Yeah. SHARE has a memorandum of understanding with every homeowner that specifies how much each resident pays, how many people can be in the house, how much rent the house is going to collect in total, and then each homeowner has an individual month-to-month lease or resident agreement with every resident. So if a resident needs to move, we move them immediately to another house, and this happens often. Most people, find their house within, 1 or 2 houses. We've moved people 6 or 7 different houses, and they're able to maintain housing as they're going through this. Tom Habercorn is our housing specialist who works with owners, and one of the things that he does is he measures all of the houses to make sure that there's enough common living area to house that number of people. So we don't put more than 2 people per bedroom because that's the recognized best practice. And because we have our peer bridgers visiting the house on a regular basis, we can see if there's a change, right? We can make sure that a third person hasn't been moved into the bedroom without our knowing.
And the peer visits are according to some schedule, or they just drop in at all times of the day and night, or no one's going to drop in after 9 o'clock, so let's get the party started.
No,
nobody will be back until 6 in the morning.
If
I'm just asking.
If one of the things that makes this work is that it's people's home. They feel like this is their home.
Yeah.
So the peer bridger is not going to come by unannounced and say, okay, I'm here from the government to check on your housing, because that is an intrusion. And people feel, but on both sides. So if Rachel makes an appointment with somebody and then for whatever reason she's not able to make that appointment in that house meeting, she's going to hear from people because she didn't show up and they're going to be mad, right? And if she doesn't check with them to make that appointment and just stops by, they're also going to be mad. Mm-hmm. So that's where the peer, the specific types of interactions that are included in peer bridging come into play in terms of dealing with the residents. Did you want to say something, Rachel?
Can I say something really fast? So I apologize, but what I want to say is that the relationship that a peer has is because we have lived experience. So when the house is forming, and most residents, and any resident that comes from homelessness, the first thing that they want to feel is being safe. So when they create their say their safety or the rules of the house, most residents will all agree on, we want to be safe. We're going to create a safe place for ourselves. And so it really takes a time in order for them to understand that they're safe, because they're coming from a place where there's so much chaos. But the peer relationship that we have, and because for myself I lived and I have that experience, they're more open to talk to me about a lot of different issues that another person will come in and say. So the development of the peer bridging and the disclosing and having the lived experience is very much needed in there, because that's the only way you'll be able to connect and have that connection with them, and then also guide them along the way. They're not going to know everything. It's not going to be perfect. But one thing that they all agree on is being safe, that they have a house, that they're okay, that they're going to feel a way to be able to be trustworthy, or they're going to trust us to know how to advocate for them. So in fact, when there's things that are going about, we do strongly advocate. I advocate for my residents all the time, to the homeowners or to share itself. Why? Because I lived that experience, and I don't want my residents falling through the crack. I don't want them to return back to homelessness. So my way is I have that relationship with all my peers, and they understand because I lived there. I lived in my car. I was homeless for a long time. And so when they see me and they're like, how did you do it? And I explain to them that they can do it as well. It's just having them and look at them as a human face, as like looking at them like, I understand you. And it's not to criticize or not to down talk, but a lot of people, they don't have the love and the connection, and they lose that. So if we show them that we're able to just love them and accept them and just guide them, it's going to make a tremendous change. So I myself, like I say, it is not perfect. There's 4 stages: the norming, the storming, the performing, and it's the forming, storming, norming, and performing. And that's kind of how the houses go. They go through the forming of the house, then it's the storming, because everybody's not knowing each other.
and then it's the performing, or it's the norming, where it gets normalized and everybody's starting to trust each other, and then it's the performing, which is the connection that they give each other for school, for support groups, for anything that they need. It's within the house itself. So it is, I'm just letting you guys know deeply that it does work, and I appreciate that you guys are taking the time. But understand, from my point of view, I was them, and I will continue to fight the fight for them because I want them to be able to have an opportunity.
Mr. Chairman, just one last question to our Thorn.
This is the third last question.
third last question.
You're worse than I am, Price.
I'm learning. I want to ask the Thorn. You've been actively involved as the property owner. Is that unusual, or do you require that kind of involvement from the property owner?
To be honest, I learned to have less involvement as a property owner, and it's more successful. And when we first started doing this, I was, as Rachel's laughing at this, because I was more involved with the people individually daily, and I was moving beyond, the drywall and supplies. And I'm not equipped and qualified to provide the social and emotional support. Rachel is, because she has gone through the lived experience, and I haven't. But also she's been trained through the peer bridging program and tools of the trade to understand how to support people as they're going through trauma. So to be honest with you, when I first was doing this, when people had trauma, I was trying to fix it, which was not the right way to go about this, which, the party started and I was like, woo, let me help you get supplies or whatever, because I was approaching it as a mother. And what it required was having a professional person who's trained in how to be a peer counselor to go in and allow them to learn as they're going through inevitable trauma. And I was trying to fix it. So I'm not sure if this is answering your question, but I have since backed out, and I focus on the building. And I focus on the drywall, I focus on the toilet paper, I focus on the cable, I focus on the bills being paid, and Cher focuses on the social emotional support. And then it's a really great relationship. I still have relationship with the tenants, but they're not looking to me, who's unqualified, to help them work through their state in life right now. And then lastly, because I'm in your district down on Wall Street, Weller House is, 28 people. It's like Melrose Place of recovery. And so I would love you to stop by sometime. Mike, you and Mike maybe stop by sometime, come see Weller House, because there are no parties with the exception of, my tenants right now are working on developing a Halloween party where they're going to be handing out candy to the neighborhood kids. And, since this is in your district, we did do a 4th of July party. We gave them a small budget, and then they planned it by themselves, and they rented tables and tents and all sorts of stuff, and neighbors came over. It was a potluck, and so all the neighbors came over and brought food as well, and it was a party for 60 people. And I recognize that there's some concern of, not in my backyard. I've heard that a lot, and I would say that these buildings, especially the ocean-style buildings, which are pretty and new, and it feels like you're walking into an HGTV house, is the neighborhood and the community has embraced our tenants and has embraced our people. And it was interesting because when we were still under construction, and I would talk to the folks who lived in the neighborhood, and they were curious about what we were doing, and they would say, Heidi, you're going to be bringing in homeless people into our neighborhood. And I'm just like, no, we aren't. They're no longer homeless. I mean, these people are no longer homeless who are here. And very shortly thereafter, the community recognized that these are hardworking people just like me. And, it's not like putting a sober living place in the middle of Beverly Hills where people are crabbing because there's smoking going on. I mean, these are people who are integrated into the community and who are working really, really hard. And I think that the neighbors recognize that they're working really hard and appreciate that. And so they got over the angst that they had within a week. And they went to the party and brought food, and now they're bringing their kids to trick-or-treat.
Thank you so much. This was a great presentation. Thank you so much,
Thank
Mr.
you, Mr.
Price.
Chairman.
You were doing great until you said you were competing with Mr. Price's 4th of July party.
Oh, really?
Ms. Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had one quick question as it relates to, is it a lease agreement that you have with the homeowners to provide these facilities and make the locations available for this? Or
Share has a memorandum of understanding with every homeowner that specifies many things. The amount that the homeowner will collect per month in rent, the maximum rent for every resident, the number of people that can be in the house. We also stipulate that the homeowner won't move anybody out without going through Share. So, and that if somebody moves out, rent will be prorated so that somebody can move into housing the same day. So if somebody pays their rent on the 1st and they move out on the 15th, the homeowner will prorate the rent, refund them the money they didn't spend, so they can use that to maintain housing in another house. The resident agreement is between each resident and the owner of the house. So the other thing that we do is, because people are sharing a bedroom, the homeowner is going to get a little bit more per month in rental income than they would renting to that single family. So we say, and we have an algorithm for that depending on the size of the house, but if it's 4 bedrooms or more, essentially the homeowner is going to get $150 per person that we move into the house above what they're looking to rent for. In exchange for that, they cover all the utilities. They pay for high-speed internet. They pay for cable. They furnish the house down to forks, knives, and spoons. So somebody's rent covers all of that. So they then have money left over for entertainment, food, and other expenses.
And then also our agreement is a lodger agreement. So with the residents, it's not a lease. So it's a lodger agreement, and so it's not a long-term lease. And they have to sign an agreement, like in our case, no alcohol or drugs on the premises, no violence. They can have alcohol or drugs elsewhere as long as it doesn't impact the community. And we have a couple of other things, like you have to be kind to each other and help support each other. And as you mentioned earlier, if a resident isn't doing that, you hear about it pretty quickly, and that's sort of the peer influence on people keeping it a kind and nice and healthy and safe environment as well.
And those agreements have been vetted by LASA in all of our contracts so that they work for all the things that they need to work for in terms of shared housing and fair housing. So the other thing that I will say is the one thing that we look for in all those agreements between the homeowner and the resident is to keep it simple, because whenever you make a rule, somebody's going to break it. So we recommend to homeowners that it's no criminal activity, this is when the rent's due, and if people want to allow smoking in the house, we tell them, we suggest that they say where people can smoke. Everything else is done by the residents. And because marijuana is still a federal crime, we let people know, smoking marijuana in the house is considered criminal activity still. So if you want to do this, we're not forcing people to abstain from drugs or alcohol. It can't happen at the house. And we have some houses where they want to allow alcohol, and in those cases, as soon as somebody with difficult drinking moves into the house, the residents themselves determine, okay, we're not going to have alcohol here. And then that's how they deal with it.
So now the price that's charged to these residents, is it based on what the market dictates in those areas? And that's kind of how?
Yeah, that's essentially it. So it varies between, I think, $460 and $700 a month right now.
And is there a minimum space requirement when you talk about, like, for example, 2 per bedroom, that there's a standard that you're applying in terms of space, because obviously the scale of the housing is different in every area.
Right. So it's 120 square feet for a bedroom to have 2 people. So if a bedroom is less than 120 square feet, it'll be a 1-person bedroom. The other thing is that there has to be 1 bathroom for every 6 people. So if the house is going to be more than 6 people, it's got to have 2 bathrooms. And we've recommended to homeowners too that in some homeowners, we haven't opened the house until they've made modifications. So one of the things that will happen often is the thing that's essentially, it's actually kind of more important than the size of the bedroom, because having a big bedroom can be, if it's 120 square feet, that's fine, and it'll go up to 200 square feet. But having enough common living area is the thing that's really important, because people have to have space outside of their bedroom where they can be alone. So we've found houses that might be a 4 or 5 bedroom house where but it's the floor plan where you walk in the front door, there's the entryway, living room, dining room, kitchen, all in the same space. And we'll say that's not going to work, because if somebody's out of their bedroom, they're seeing everybody else. So take 1 or 2 of the bedrooms and make them a family room or a den, and you'll get the same monthly rent total, but it'll be better for people in the house because they'll have more access of the whole property. And Tom inspects all of those properties on a regular basis and works with the owners to do the modifications that they need to do.
Okay, last question, and I actually mean my last question. On the the homeowner agreements that you've had in place, have you had circumstances where they have chosen to opt out of continuing participation, and then in that case, what happens to the residents and the tenants of that particular property?
So a couple different things have happened with that. Sometimes we've had homeowners say, well, I don't want to do share anymore, but I want the people to stay in the house. And we'll say, okay, and we'll give the residents a letter, and we'll say, you're not going to have peer bridging anymore. You're welcome to stay in this house. If you want to have continued peer bridging, we'll move you into a different place. And people make their decision, and they do. That's what happens most of the time. Most of the houses really last. One of the houses that didn't work out was a big house. It was 7 bedrooms, and it had been vacant for a couple years. And as soon as we moved 2 people per bedroom in that 7-bedroom house that hadn't been occupied, the plumbing system just couldn't handle it. And so the homeowner saw that they had to, invest tens of thousands of dollars to get the house back in shape, and we just moved everybody into a different house. So that's how we handle that.
Excellent. Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. There's tremendous interest in this program. I have several questions, but I will exercise restraint as the committee chair because I got to move us along. But one question before I turn it over to Mr. Bonin. What happens if somebody doesn't pay rent?
We move them. We settle it and we move them. But they get to start over is the thing. So every resident that moves in has what we call a plan for success, where they plan on what their life is going to look like 5 years from now across the board. Career, family, vacation, mental health. If you're a success, what's life look like 5 years from now? And then we move backwards. And inevitably, part of that plan is income and how people deal with income and what the plan is. So one of the things that's really essential in our training for homeowners is that they notify us immediately when somebody doesn't pay rent, because they think they're being nice when they wait 5 days before they let us know. But if they wait 5 days, that money's gone. If they tell us the day that the rent's due that somebody hasn't paid, then Rachel can work with a resident and figure out what's going on and make a plan. So a lot of that is the relationship. The other thing that I want to say is we started this program in 2005. In all of that time, 13 years of doing this, we've had one homeowner file eviction paperwork. That's it. We've never had anybody evicted. Only one owner has filed paperwork. And the thing that happened was the person got to stay in the house without paying rent, and everybody else in the house saw, oh, wait, they don't have to pay rent. I'm not going to pay rent either. So there's a real incentive on the owners to do it our way. And the other thing that our MOU requires is that homeowners let us mediate.
Thank you.
I find that most people are dying to pay rent. Like if we're late getting over there to collect rent, I start getting phone calls because that's been a source of trauma in the past. So they really want to make sure that I get my rent super, super early, like on the 2nd.
Thanks, Mr. Harris-Dawson, and thank you and your staff for accommodating my persistent request to hear this today on an otherwise busy agenda. I appreciate it. I also want to thank Rachel and Carrie, if Carrie's still here, for coming down to testify. I appreciate it. And Heidi, you're not a thorn in my side. Homelessness is a thorn in my side. You may be an occasional bee sting.
A wasp at least.
But you've forced me to listen and to learn and to get to this, so thank you. Just a couple quick questions. Government has a hard time embracing things that are easier than what government does, which is a challenge for this model because it is so much easier and quicker and less expensive than what we do that it seems uncomfortable to us. You've got a long track record. I've seen you at work. one of the other things that makes this difficult for government is government likes clean, clear lines with boxes that says you are this type of program in the world of homelessness, that you are either permanent supportive housing, or you are crisis housing, or you are rapid rehousing. Just briefly, you can be all of them, right?
Yeah, we can, and in any one given house, we might have residents that are going through any one of those situations that define the experience for themselves as any three of those issues, right? Somebody might move into the house and say, okay, I'm going to be here until I'm able to connect with my family again. We have people that move into shared collaborative housing through the coordinated entry system that have been matched to a unit of permanent supportive housing, but it's not ready yet, or their document isn't ready, or so the homeowner modifies the agreement between the homeowner and that resident to say, this is housing not to exceed 28 days, so they don't lose any of that benefit. So we're able to have the flexibility to deal with all of that.
So you are a potential placement for really any mode, whether it's...
This can work as a shelter, it can work as bridge housing, it can work as permanent supportive housing.
Okay. And I just wanted to ask a question about the CES. One of the things that government always looks for is long-term outcomes and stats. So to what extent are the people housed in your place entered into the coordinated entry system so it can be measured against the other stuff the government invests in?
Everybody that we house is either through the CES system, or we connect them to that system by entering them into LASA's HMIS Clarity system. Our contracts with DHS, we have to enter them into another database that's specifically through DHS. So everybody is connected to that system. And I will say that, I want to specifically call this out because your leadership in your district really made for better partnerships. Before that, we had difficulty with some of the agencies, and right now, because of this contract, the providers on the west side bring people to share every single day and say, here they are, house them, and we house them. I mean, St. Joseph Center has 2 people per day coming to share.
I've seen it happen since we started Venice Forward.
Yeah.
The costs for the pilot aren't the same as the costs for scaling up, obviously.
Right.
The pilot you did with the resources you had.
Right.
You didn't have to find new places. You didn't have to hire new peer bridgers. So the driving costs for an expanded, ramped-up program of, say, 100 per council district, that is the additional staffing, the housing navigators, the peer bridgers, et cetera, yes?
Right, and it's a cost of, when, like I said, we open 100 beds, we house 160 people. So the budget that I gave is actually, 100 people per district would be 1,500 people. It's for 2,000 people because after we created this budget, the mayor's office of economic development said, how many people can you do from Skid Row? Because we've got to house 2,000. Right. And so we said 500 and put them into that budget that the mayor's office has as well. So it breaks down to, when it's scaled, $5,000 per person to keep them housed.
Right. And I just want to point out, because there's 15 council districts, so if every council district were to avail themselves of this program and housing 100 people, it would be about $500,000 per council district. I just want to remind us that that's basically the cost of a single unit of permanent supportive housing.
It's a cheap
so
unit.
Even if you only housed 2 people per council district, you would have housed twice as many people as we would have with that amount of money with PSH. Yeah. Which is why I'm so intensely interested in this and definitely want it to be part of the bridge housing, at least in my district. So, Mr. Chair, the motion, I think, spells out the direction that I wanted to go, is ask the various agencies to report back on the use of shared housing countywide and identify funding sources to expand the program in the city. And specifically ask Meg to report on how it can be incorporated into the bridge housing program. Just to elaborate on that, to give you a sense of where I'm going, I think it would be good to reach out to each council office to see who other than me is eager to have this as part of their bridge housing. So what I'd like to know is, what it would take from staffing, budget, programmatic standpoint to incorporate access to shared housing and to the model of services at bridge home sites. What's the best way to make sure bridge home participants are connected to shared housing beds when those resources make sense for that person, including a strategy for people in crisis housing who haven't been matched with PSH yet, as Jason was referring to be able to exit that crisis housing into an affordable rental situation. Report back on what kind of data and outcome tracking LASA does regarding shared housing placements, and if it's not enough, some recommendations on a plan and a timeline to make that better. The only ask I'd make is if the sort of the bureaucratic research on what LASA does and stuff takes longer than a funding recommendation, don't wait on the funding recommendation, because bridge housing is coming and we want to get people off the street. So I'd ask that we approve the recommendations in the motion and ask Meg to report back.
All right. Mr. Price, do you want an amendment saying the Wall Street people have to go to your 4th of July party? All right. Hearing no objection, that'll be the order. Thank you all so much. We really, really appreciate you and applaud your innovation and the capacity that you're bringing to the city with regard to this very, very difficult problem. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
That into the record.
Item number 3 is a report from the City Administrative Officer relative to the proposed recommendations from the Proposition HHH Citizens Oversight Committee on Proposition HHH Permanent Supportive Housing Loan Program Commitments.
All right, we have one speaker, Ms. Val Carlson. You're a trooper. I can't wait to hear what you're going to say.
So are all of you. It's been a long day. At the risk of perhaps making government uncomfortable, I'm going to suggest another alternative that I think should really seriously consider here, which is that, the elephant in the room during the discussion before your break had to do with the problem of getting housing available. And my concern with the HHH housing as it's being set up is that while LA residents thought we were going to get at least 10,000 units in 5 years, what we're seeing now is maybe 6,000. We're seeing $600,000 per unit. When you start comparing that to the numbers that you heard a few minutes ago, what we really need to do instead is have the city use its own property or property that can acquire, build large-scale public housing that uses the same kind of approach that SHARE does with people who have lived experience making it work. But build it, own it, and run it at much less than the cost than is happening with the HHH as it's set up now.
Thank you so much. If there are no questions or comments on this item, Mr. Price, Ms. Rodriguez, Mr. Bonin, we will take this item on consent and congratulate our homelessness czar on her 2nd anniversary, Meg Barclay. Let's give her a big round of applause. Wow. I see no general public comment speakers in the queue, so I believe that completes the business for today. Excellent. We're adjourned.